Greetings. Today's scripture comes from John chapter 11, verses 1 through 3 and 28 through 37, the story of Jesus and Lazarus. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, when the one you love, the one you love is sick. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, the teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary get up quickly and go out. And they followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? And that's the end of the passage that we're reading for today. There's a lot more to this story if you want to read it in John chapter 11. So who was Lazarus? Why did Jesus love him so? Why are his sisters so important? He's their brother, but they all live in the village, also in Luke, of Martha, or the village of Mary and her sister Martha. The gospel writers give us the sisters' names, the women's names as the head of household, as the village of. A lot of questions surround Lazarus. Who was Lazarus? He was a guy with two sisters, two well-known sisters, for the town of Bethany was known as Martha's town and Mary's household. Number one, they were wealthy because the grave that Lazarus was buried in, from which he was raised after stinking for a little bit, was cut out of a rock in the side of a hill or mountain. Number two, they were living in a patriarchy. It's a social system in which men hold primary power and predominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. It was also patrilineal, meaning that the male inherits the property and the title. But why does neither Luke nor John, both who mention this family, identify Lazarus as the man of the household or even the village? It's not until after Lazarus is raised from the dead that John identifies Lazarus with his village. It's always the sisters first, then mention of Lazarus. Was he very young? He would have had to have been younger than 9 to not be considered the head of the household or to inherit the household. But if that's the case, it's curious why none of the gospel writers mention that Lazarus is a child. Perhaps he was a man incapable of tending to a household or providing for the sisters. Or maybe he'd messed up badly. Maybe he was shunned for some shameful thing like drinking too much or consorting with the wrong crowd. Maybe he was just different. Our modern society didn't invent autism or an extra chromosome. These differences happen in nature. If Lazarus was differently abled, It might have kept the gospel writers from placing the brother as the head of the household. It might have been known among the society that it was Mary's village and Martha's house. Something that we are never told, and what kept Lazarus from inheriting his rightful place in the patriarchal society. But here's what we do know about him. Whomever he was, whatever he was capable or incapable of, whatever place he held, Jesus loved him. Whomever he was, the gospel writers and society as well didn't think much of him, but Jesus loved him. After the exegesis draws out this unusual context of this family, the key verse here is, see how he loved him. Others observing Jesus weeping for love of a friend. See how he loved him. We will never know who Lazarus really was or why he was shunned by society and not automatically placed because of his sex like everyone else. Something else must have been in front of him, must have preventing him from being included with them. But who cares if you're Lazarus? Jesus wept. And at the thought of a world without his friend Lazarus, and then telling him to come out of the grave. Well, and while there may be more mystery to this Lazarus character, this story tells us about who Jesus is. Jesus is the friend of those that the world has said no to. He's the friend of the son who was, for whatever reason, written off. He's a friend of the man who will never be independent of his sisters. And we don't know why. Jesus is the friend we all should be. This relationship between Jesus and Lazarus can wake us up to the people we need to include and make room for in our world. Those who, for a multitude of reasons, don't stand in the halls of power or inherit their birthright and don't have influence and never will. This is not for pity on those who are less fortunate. It is to see people as Jesus did. Because he was Lazarus' friend, because he was Lazarus' friend. That's the end. This story can help us as we conduct ourselves today and see others as people first, not all the labels of their ability or disability or place in society. Jesus teaches us to see people as people first, instead of all the categories and adjectives we place in front of them. So, do you want to follow Jesus? Then see how he loved him. And others will know that's who you're with. Amen.